Hey everyone, welcome back. It's another episode of Small Business Stories. You know me, you know the voice, Loralyn Mears, aka Dr. LL, bringing you wonderful guests with every episode. And this one's going to be fun. I mean, I know they're all fun in different ways, but I've got Brian Mattocks, who's the COO of Podcast Chef. And this is really fun to have somebody who does podcast stuff for a living on our podcast. Brian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. I love being on this side of the show, kind of dynamic.
But isn't it fun? I mean, you gave me the opportunity to be on your show. He's got a wonderful podcast called Hard to Market. And it's so nice to have it on the other side. Someone deals with all the scheduling, all the recording, all the production, all the marketing, all the stuff. And all you have to do is, when do I show up? What's the link? Great. Isn't it nice?
It is, it's wonderful. And I think it's really great to be a guest because it gives you that it's very empowering, right? It's a very empowering sense of like I get to share what I have learned. And that process is always very fulfilling.
Which is really the whole essence of why most of my guests come onto my show. And in the show that you have, I want to explore if it's the same thing. People have learned something and they want to share it. That's why we're writing books. That's why we're writing memoirs. That's why we do blogs. That's why we get on TikTok. That's why we do stuff like, hey, this happened to me. This is how I dealt with it. This is society now, no?
So it's funny, right? We've been telling stories to each other since the beginning of time as a way to leverage experience across different people. So you don't have to get eaten by the saber-toothed tiger in order to learn how to run from them. This is the whole story dynamic and the way people have kind of transferred knowledge from each other since again time immemorial is the story process. And a big part of going on podcasts and doing that is essentially yes, sharing the learning and sharing that kind of lessons and understanding that you get over time. But it's also then to help folks that are looking to, not have those problems, for themselves, right? So it's like, hey, this person told me convincingly how to run from that saber-toothed tiger. I think I might be running from a polar bear soon. So let me talk to them some more. It's really to start building that expertise and credibility as part of that conversation.
Do you think there is so much content out there now that people are overwhelmed by it and not following any of the advice? Have we gone to that side of it?
That's an interesting question, and I think the answer is no. And I used to worry about this a lot because in the content business, as you know, right, you've got this real sense of urgency kind of problem. The reality is you are always content is always in the moment. The number of people that are likely to be like, let me go listen to your entire back catalog is, you're at 1%, right? Um, so because of that, because you're always in the moment and because your listeners are always in the moment, you really do have to be perpetually in the now with this stuff. And that doesn't eliminate the value of the sort of archive or anything like that. You can still leverage that for other purposes. And, otherwise, why would we not just go to newspapers and burn all the books? Right. I mean, it's the same kind of model. If you understand where podcasting and content creation fits in the sort of knowledge dynamic, you understand that things like podcasts and things like, even the short form stuff like TikTok and YouTube shorts and all that is all part of a larger information dynamic. And you need to be available kind of in all of those hierarchies. And that's where sort of how this fits together for me.
I see. And where I see it, as a podcaster, I am very intentional about what I do and the content I create. I strive to offer value. And it's a lot of investment. Every podcast, even though it might only be a 30 to 40-minute episode, really comes to about 2 to 3 hours, closer to that three side. By the time you find the guests, you vet the guests, you schedule, you reschedule, because of course things happen and then all of that sort of nonsense. And then you get into it, then you've got to do the production, all of the cleanup, put it on your syndication sites, get it out everywhere. And then I also echo the video version. So you've got to do that, create the clips, create the reels, go to the market, right? It's 3 hours. So I want to be intentional about it. And I think about, wow, are people getting the value that they want? And that's really important to me. And that's what drives me to do it. What drives you to do it?
It's funny. Different podcasts have different intended outcomes, right? Folks for podcasting for business, I tell every one of our clients, like, look, don't bother. I mean, it's crazy to say this way. Like, this is sounds like it's anti-client, right? Like, I don't want customers, please. Don't bother creating a podcast to get audience and then get turn them into clients. Like that entire model is sort of not functional for most small businesses. What really makes sense is using your podcast to network, to find the people that you wish you could talk to, but didn't have a context to do so. If I can't get in front of, my typical buyer with, my spam marketing, 101 booklet, whatever, um, then the best way to do it is to say, listen, can we have a conversation to make it count? Let's record it and turn it into something that could deliver value. If you focus too much on the value side of the podcast conversation, I know this sounds counterintuitive. You end up essentially creating curriculum, which is great, but it's a completely different thing.
Right.
What you really want to do is get into these sort of catalyzing situations where you meet the people you really want to talk to and then just chat. It's so much more engaging. It's so much more enlivening. And the worst you get out of it is a new contact that you always wanted anyway.
That's one way to look at it, right? And like I said, I see it. I strive to the value. And even if my audience isn't getting value, oh my goodness, the value I've got
Yep.
out of the podcast, it's been, I really couldn't measure it. It's made me a better conversationalist. It's forced me to look at things in a different way, hear different perspectives. And I can't even tell you how many podcast guests that after they've left the show, I've gone, ooh, I download their book. Oh, get this, get that. Oh, there's got that tips. I better get that and follow it because I've been mesmerized by what they've been able to achieve and communicate, how they did it. And then I followed them and done what they've said. So I love podcasting.
Right, exactly. So you've set your own growth trajectory and you've used the podcast as a tool to make that go. The byproduct of that is content that may or may not, again, because of the urgency issue and the currency issue, may or may not turn into any one thing. And that's fine too. Like, yes, we're going to collect it all and see if we can't turn it into something amazing. But being intentional with how you use your podcast to leverage your own growth and development and, again, build your network or whatever the strategy that you're trying to apply is that is a win condition by any rational sort of inquiry, right? You're going to profit by this in one capacity or another. Now, do you have the time and cognitive bandwidth to do all those things you talked about? The network conversation, the preload, the all of the post-production work. That's where, we come in with stuff like that. You can always buy your way out of some of the nuisance problems with a production company like Podcast Chef or any of the others out there.
What do people get wrong about podcasts?
Awesome question. Anyone that comes to the table and says, I want to be Joe Rogan, has gotten it wrong. Um, Joe Rogan doesn't want to be Joe Rogan, right? And that's like an important understanding here. When you get to a size and scale of podcast like that, you're locked in to delivering the same thing over and over and over again. And that's if you're not ready to be part of that machine, womp womp, right? The other thing that they get, and I think we talked about this in our recent recording, is they get a perfection bias where it's like they're going to create this masterful holy grail level piece of content, and it's going to solve all of the problems ever, and then they have to perform that Herculean task on a weekly basis. And the reality is, it's not. This is all written in pencil at best. It's, your initial sort of uptake on listeners is going to be relatively low. You get to make as many mistakes as you have bandwidth for.
It is. And you talk about that. A couple of months ago, I saw an interview. So I love Diary of a CEO podcast. So Stephen was interviewing Mr. Beast. And Mr. Beast talked about that, sort of the perils of fame, that he has to be there. If he doesn't show up and doesn't do what he's expected to do, everything crumbles. And he's not ready for that. But the burden is so high. And he was almost in tears talking about it. And I thought, wow, here's a guy that has everything. He's got his Feastables candy company. He's got this, he's got that. And he's just burnt out.
Yeah, it's very easy to create your own monsters here with this stuff if you're not careful. And when I say careful, I mean intentional with what you want to get out of it. So again, if you walk in trying to be all things to all people, you lose. If you come in and you try and create this sort of one-shot content library that's going to solve for all of the things, that's also a lose condition. When you come in and you approach this as play, it gets better, right? He One of the things that happens with Mr. Beast, for example, is he lost his ability to screw around,
Right.
right? Because now so many people are counting on him in his company. So many of his audience members are looking to him for the answers. And that is a constraining situation, right? We have opportunities and potentials as small business owners. One of the reasons why we don't fit into the regular mold in the small business space is because we want to do it our way, right or wrong or indifferent, right? It doesn't really matter how it happened that we ended up being the, nonconformists that we've become, neurodivergence, whatever it is. That whole process has left us in an environment where we're used to being in charge. And the moment you shackle yourself to an idea bigger than yourself, like this, where you become essentially a servant to that system, it gets very difficult for the neurodivergent among us and the independents.
That's right. And again, as a fellow neurodivergent, you and I had a little chit chat about that. What makes it really hard is once you've had a taste of this independence and everything else and the freedom of thought, right? The privilege of focus or not, right? As the ADHD squirrel, it's nice not to have to focus and just do the one thing. Make the widget, make the widget, make the widget. I would die in a factory, absolutely die a rapid death in a factory. But once you've had this taste of being able to express yourself, express your interests, do all of these things and do it your way on your time, it's almost impossible to go back to that kind of level of structure. As appealing as it might sound, oh, because there's predictable income, there's this, you can't. And that was the realization for me once all of this started. Wow, I was always the square peg in the round hole in corporate. I had a lot of big jobs, Fortune 100s, but I got to work on intrapreneurial efforts where you had the backing of the big brand and all the money and got to really screw around internally and figure out new ways to do things. But other places, I didn't do well. I mean, what was it for podcasting for you when you realized, wow, this is clicking all the buttons for me? This is what I get to do because this is how I'm wired to do it.
There's been a couple like key interviews that I had where I'm like, wow, I'm having the conversation that I never expected to have. Where, you know how, when you're coming up through life or whatever, you get into these conversations with your friends, you're out at a pub or whatever, and the conversation itself feels epic. Where you're just like, I don't know where this goes or if it means anything, but it feels like we're busy, planning the next, major revolution or whatever it is. Um, with the podcast experience, you have the ability to create those transcendent moments in the moment, and every you don't get them every episode, but you will get these times where you're like, I never ever would have had this opportunity in any other way. I got it. I had this one introduction. There was an episode I did not long ago with a guy who just understood his work at a sublime level. And when he talked through it, it was like listening to somebody who had um, painted all their life and just told you how they paint. And it's like this nuanced, like, I no longer am involved in the process, kind of like, how do you, wait a minute, how do you, how does any of this work? And it just felt like you were watching mastery or listening to mastery, as the case may be. Those moments that you can get in this environment are worth the entire price of admission.
Totally agree. Because again, I've interviewed about 300 or more folks, and there's a few conversations that have just absolutely lit up. A lot of great conversations, some great, some never even were published because the guest
We've had
was
those.
just like, right, you're going, yeah. So talk to me a little bit about your industry and how you see this changing. I've noticed this trend. What do you think? Uh, I guess. Okay, this is a
I've
podcast where we're
no,
featuring you. You need to talk.
it gets worse, right? You get the ones where you're like, so why do you think your industry the way it is? Well, once we let all the women in, and you're like,
Right.
what?
Stop, stop,
What?
stop.
What are you doing? How do you think this is going to reflect on any of us? I am not publishing this. This is the hot garbage.
Yeah, yeah.
Your your take is not a hot take. Your take is a toxic one.
There we
We're
go. And
we are not doing it. Yeah.
no, exactly. And it is about that, those moments of enlightenment. And I keep thinking every time I have that moment, it almost doesn't matter that nobody else ever hears it. I hope they do because it's just so freaking amazing.
Yep.
But if people don't, wow, I really took it to heart. Like I got something of enormous value to me. And I always tell the person I appreciate it so much. And I've had some big guests. I've enjoyed that. And, always looking for more too. And it's so let's flip this around to where podcasting has changed. So a few years ago, celebrities really get in on the scene and podcasting exploded. Do you think that's done a disservice to podcasting as a field for communication and outreach?
So that's part of the question I'm going to push back against, and that is, I don't think there is podcasting as a field.
Hmm.
There's just people, and there always has been just people. This is just one other way people communicate. And if you try and turn it into something else, again, you've already lost, right?
Hmm.
We connect with each other at an individual level with individual behaviors and beliefs and all that stuff. The best episodes, you've described, you've had these almost transcendent moments, and that's when two people connect,
Yes.
and that's it. What else are you looking for? Like, will it turn into money? Sure. Will it turn into these other opportunities? Will it turn into growth and development? Will you become a better person as a result? Yeah, absolutely. But just be present and communicate. The moment you kind of start looking at the macro, you essentially are trying, you take yourself out of the conversation. And I'm telling you right now, the best thing to do is use you and connect with other people. When you zoom out too much, you try and create, you get this like sense of responsibility for the structure itself, which you have no ability to influence. The best thing you can do as a content creator is create good content. The marketplace or whatever that is emerges from good people doing good work. So I don't have to worry about the marketplace. I don't have to worry about the podcast landscape because I'm doing good work. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It's absolutely. So I got into conflict in the earlier incarnation of small business stories where the media paper that I was associated with, great, I like working with them and all of that, helping get them off the ground. But it became all about the sales and they were selling it and pushing it. And I had to do these different stories. And so I got really burnt out. 2024, I just pulled back from all of that, not aligned with who I am, what I want, and hit 2025 really hard looking at what do I want out of this podcast? What do I get out of it?
Yeah.
How do I enjoy it? Why do I do it? And I love the conversation. I
And you
just
you
do.
know you've seen it in your leadership development work, I'm sure, right? Um, the systems emerge from people, not the other way around. The moment you try and organize a system and put people in it, you are trying to work counter to the way people are, because
Mhm.
we're not machines, because we don't fit in, like, cogs and spokes and wheels and stuff. What we do is, if you invest in the people and cultivate the behaviors and cultivate the kind of emotional investment in the individuals, the system will emerge, and you'll find that you'll build an organizational capability, you'll build a podcast capability, you'll build a business capability that is 10 times stronger, because it's people centric, because that's all this has always been. All business is people, all podcasting is people, all communications is people. These things don't exist. You don't go into the woods and see otters, exchanging currency, right? That's not how this goes. This is all how people interact with each other.
Bingo, bingo. All right, Brian, as we're wrapping up our show, how can people find you?
So I have host of, like, n number of podcasts at this point. I have lost count, but you can certainly find me if you type my name into any of the podcasting browsers. But you'll find Podcast Chef at podcastchef.com, and from there you can hit me at Brian at podcastchef.com.
Excellent. We'll do that now. Last question. This is our signature
Uh-oh.
question. Almost 300 folks later. If we got to take a look into your bedroom closet, is there a pair of shoes, footwear, boots, something, an accessory that personifies who you, Brian Mattocks, are? And when you wear that, how does it make you feel?
Wow, that is a that is going to take a second. So, ironically, no, the footwear itself would not be the personification of who I am. It's the shelf that I designed and 3D printed for my footwear. That would be a much stronger personification of who I am. It sounds strange, but the I needed the place to put my shoes, because I have, they're all purpose driven, right? I have a pair of shoes that solves this problem. I have a pair. I'm a dude, right? We don't have footwear for, like, the artistic side of it as much. It's functional
Functional.
first, right? Um, so I have all these functional shoes, and I needed to figure out where to put them. And I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? None of the solutions that were out in the marketplace solved for my brain the way it worked. So I had to, independent free thinker, all that kind of stuff. So I designed and 3D printed a little clip holder that I can put wood in, and now I have the shoe problem solved forever. So does that kind of answer the question without
I
being
love it.
tricky?
Yes. I don't care about being tricky. It's how you answered it. Because no two answers have ever been the same. I've had some guest on that talked about his samurai sword collection that's in his closet. And he opens it up and he sees them all hanging there underneath his shirts, and it gives him immense joy. You've built a special shelving system using your brain and tools and technology because you're an advanced techie guy. And why not, right? That's
Yeah,
who you
exactly.
are. That's what it's about. That's why I love this question.
It's a good one.
So do my
I
guests
like
too.
it.
Yeah, it's my signature. Yeah. All
Thank you
right.
so much for having me on today.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for being on our show. Again, folks, this is Brian Mattocks. He is the host of many podcasts, including Hard to Market. He's the COO of Podcast Chef, taking away all those little production pesky problems that people have and trying to get their show out in a timely way. Take note, Loralyn. Anyway, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.